we actually know so much more about space than the deep, deep ocean. I find that so terrifying. Like the sea is terrifying. There's like so many mouths in there. And I've
never heard it described as so many mouths in there.
Aren't there though? Even the little ones, they've still got a mouth. Those little tiddlers.
Hello and welcome to the Process Podcast. We will be talking random stuff in here because that's what I like doing on this podcast. But what isn't random is the guests I bring, because I bring really good guests. And today's guest is the wonderful Naomi.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Nice. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, I'm always really excited when spring comes and I'm about to start touring this new show. So yeah,
Nice.
Things are good.
Nicely done. So the way I always like to try and start these podcasts is trying to go into like how did we first meet each other, and like all I can think of is, again, as with most people on this podcast, it's probably something poetry related. I'm trying to think of what the first poetry related thing would have been where we'd crossed paths properly.
I remember there was that poetry festival.
There was the Twickenham one we did.
The Twickenham one. But I feel like we'd met before then.
Well, yeah, because like I feel like I knew, at the very least, knew of you before that. But I can't remember when we were in the same room, because like you've never been London-based properly, have you?
No. I mean, I've done gigs here, but not lived here. But maybe I think I knew of you long before we'd met, because I loved your poem "Man Walks Into a Bar," and I've shared it far and wide and talked about it in workshops. Nice. I mean, it's just brilliant. Yeah, nice. So good.
Well, yeah, that's always one of the things I think, especially pre-lockdown poetry scene and whatnot. I think there was a lot more adding each other on Facebook and like knowing, oh, you've got a lot of mutual friends, so I'm going to add you as well. I don't know, you've never met you been in the same room, but that vibe, we're just going to connect on here. And like, I think Instagram's kind of bringing that back a little, but not to the same degree.
Yeah, definitely. There's sort of rhizomatic effect of connection, for sure. I mean, also, I think you headlined Hammer and Tongue in Brighton when I was hosting it.
Yes, that would have been, because that would have been the one when it was by the beach still? Yes. Yeah,
that was great. That was a really good show. Really happy to have you there.
So I think Brighton Hammer and Tongue is the most frequent non-London night I have done at this stage now. Really?
How often have you done it?
Well, I did it when you were hosting it, and then I did another one early, like 2023 or something, when Leanne was hosting it. And then they brought me back again, what must have been last year? For their grand final thing, because they started doing the grand final for Hammer and Tongue at the open air theatre, and they were like, "Who do you know that can do something in the round?" Tyrone moves enough; it can work. Yeah,
great. So you're a regular by the season.
Just about. I do like White. I do like going back there. But yes, on the podcast today, we're going to be talking a lot about you, and to start off that, we're going to go into our section called Timelines. So for the timeline section, I like to go over people's like past, present and future in their creative fields. And with that, I obviously know, as with so many people on this podcast, you have many a creative string to you, but I don't know. There was a phrase in my head that I lost it as I was saying it, but you cover a lot of creative practices. So like, have you always been a creative person? What kind of got you into the creative sphere?
I suppose I always wrote stories as a kid. I was always into creative writing since I was really little. I think I always imagined I'd be like a novelist. That was the dream. And I wrote bits of poetry here and there. Then I studied English Lit and I stayed on to do an MA in creative writing. And then around that time, I had this kind of health scare that propelled me forward. Once I had the all clear, I talk about it in Goddess, I sort of was propelled forward into, okay, how can I really like seize life and live a life that's really juicy and exciting and creative. So then I really got into like theatre and circus, and sort of was very much on like the London nightclub scene and doing aerial hoop and cabaret, and sort of put writing on the back burner. And then it was only, I think, around 2018 Some of those cabaret gigs sort of asked if I could involve creative writing in the acts in one way or another. And I thought, oh yeah, why not? And then I remember there were a couple of times where I was like, oh, there's something really in this. There's something that I have to explore that's really exciting without, these other elements, these tricks, or these visual elements. What happens when it's just your words and you're telling these true stories? It felt so vulnerable and so exciting and really nerve-wracking, and I'm quite into that, like going towards the edge of things that feel a bit uncomfortable sometimes. I'm like, oh, okay, there's something in there for me. It's a portal to something. And then the Old Market in Brighton, a really amazing theatre venue, have been really supportive. So they, again, I remember early days reading a poem there, like shaking, holding the paper, like,
It's always amusing looking back on the younger you and doing poetry. And it's like, I was, because at the time it was like, I'm great at this, I'm amazing. You look back at it, it's like, oh, okay, no, we have grown, we have learned.
But isn't that great
yes.
to
God,
see
yeah.
see how much you've grown and think, oh, okay, something's happening then, something's moving in a new direction. But yeah, they were really supportive and sort of encouraged me, because I'd already been doing sort of aerial acts for them and club nights there and cabaret and things. And then they sort of really encouraged the poetry. And then in lockdown, they did a live stream, obviously, because couldn't do live shows. And they projected a poetry film that I'd made with a friend, and I did live aerial hoop in front of it. And it felt really experimental. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. What happens? Because I noticed some of the moves I was doing in the hoop were kind of reflected in the language I was using and how I was moving on the screen in the film. And I thought, oh, there's something there, like some sort of jigsaw needs to happen. So yeah, I'm kind of interested in like putting unusual things together, or not necessarily unusual things, but yeah, just seeing. I think when you're starting out making stuff as a creative, no one tells you what's possible. No one, like, so you just have to like make it before you know what it is, and sort of just like play and see what happens. And I think when I was starting out, I thought like there were clear like boundaries of like, I'm a this person and I do this thing. And actually the more you do it, the more you're like, wow, anything's sort of possible.
It's nice, so I think what's wonderfully unique about you, especially compared to a lot of poets I'm meeting nowadays, is that almost your entry into spoken word was already, I do a lot of other creative things already, and now coming into spoken word, I've already got some of the other creative things filled, I'm just adding poetry on top of it.
Yeah.
So like, what was your like first introduction to like spoken word as a thing, if you can remember that at all?
I think probably the poetry brothel. And because that's kind of cabaret adjacent, that was probably one of the earliest things. And then obviously sort of seeing Kay Tempest. I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, like Arnie DeFranco, I'm a big fan of hers. Sort of really interested in how she incorporated spoken word into her albums, into her live shows as well, like sort of breaking what you expected lyricism to be. I found that really disarming and fascinating.
Nice. And then like looking at like present day stuff, obviously like you've been doing festival stuff, you've got your shows, etc. Where would you say your creative practice is at the moment? What are you doing and working on at the moment?
Okay, at the moment, interesting. Yeah, so Goddess, the tour I've been showing for the last couple of years was based on a very specific moment in time in the past, and I'd processed that time and felt very able to talk about it. So it's all, I think most of what I write is autobiographical. It's very much based on real life. And so after touring that, I knew I wanted to kind of write something a bit more current. So this new show that I'm about to tour this year it's interesting though, because it feels still very alive for me. So it's not really processed, and it's actually quite vulnerable and on the edge, because it's not just like, here's a moment in time I can talk about that I've dealt with. It's like, oh, I don't know yet, because this is still coming out of me and I don't have the answers, and this is what I'm wrestling with. So I'm kind of excited by that, because I think in the process of writing the show, I'm learning stuff about myself and about my creative practice. But also I think once I actually perform it in front of people, I'll learn some new things as well. So it feels a bit scary and risky in a way, but I'm looking forward to what that reveals.
Nice. And like with when you're doing like things like your show, etc., like is that very much the show is almost taking up all the creativity, or is there time to do other things as well on the side for you?
Yeah, there's time to do other. Well, time
Time is up.
it doesn't exist. So I've been making a new poetry collection, and I'm still interested in how, I think you do this so well with your poems work so well performed, but they also really translate well on the page. And I love your books, and I'm still exploring how my stuff can work on the page, and I'm not sure I've totally nailed it yet, but I'm getting there. So I've got a new collection of poetry out, and actually this winter I've been writing a piece of creative non-fiction. I don't really know what it is. It's sort of like an essay. There's research in there. I don't know yet. It's a like undulating beast of unknowability.
Yeah.
It's all about solitude and community, and how we seek, how we relate to each other, how we form connections, and how we might do that in a healthy way. But how, like sort of the eremitic creative life of like seeking solitude to make stuff, and then like suddenly, because I see that in my own life. It's like I spend like long periods of time alone writing and making, and it's like, is this weird? Will anyone get it? I don't know what this is. And then suddenly in the summer you're on stages all the time, around people, around other artists, performing your work, like spewing up your guts on stage, and it's quite a like bizarre, polarizing experience in that way. So yeah, I was interested in what that means to like seek solitude and visibility.
Nice. So it seems like present is still doing a lot of things. Show is the priority, but there's still other things happening.
Yes.
Moving.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, like looking into like future, whether it's near future or long-term future, etc. Like, what are there things you still want to do? Do you have any goals or things still to accomplish? What is the future looking like for you?
What does the future look like? I'd love to keep developing work for the stage. I just find it so interesting. Every show is different. Something new emerges every time. Every audience is different. And I just find it like endlessly challenging and fascinating. So I'd like to keep touring theatre shows, but I'd also really like to get into producing and helping other people. I've learned some stuff along the way, and I wouldn't say that I'm an actor at all. I haven't studied like theatre or drama or dance. I'm sort of making it all up as I go along. But I feel like along the way I've learned a few things, and I'd love to help direct and produce other people's work.
It's like, so like producing wise, you're thinking more like producing people's full-length shows, etc., rather than going back to like producing a monthly night kind of thing.
Oh yeah, producing full-length shows.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you do all your stuff. That is a lot of juggling to do. But yeah, I'd love to help other people who, for example, have a solo show they want to like pull out of themselves, but they don't know, how to bring it out in its entirety. And I'd sort of be really interested to like work with them on that, and how, little tricks, even just theatrical devices and dramaturgy, they call it, don't they?
And like, are there any kind of more like creative feels that are a bit like I still want to try that out at some stage, or like I haven't done like playing guitar yet or something like that kind of thing? I'm going to add that to this at some point, or are we like comfortable with the many things we are doing?
Oh no, I'm never comfortable. I mean, I sort of feel like accidentally, particularly in this new show, but also in Goddess as well, I've sort of been leaning into clowning a little bit, which is a whole vast discipline. So I'd sort of be interested to like explore that a bit more.
Nice. Well, that's a great way of seeing where the timeline has gone now. But like, I think we're going to probably be focusing in now on the show stuff, etc., as we move into our next section called Let's Talk About. For the Let's Talk About section, I always like to think, tangents are going to happen. We know this. This is how conversations work.
Yeah, I embrace the tangent.
Always, but like at the very least, to give us a starting off point, naturally you have been talking about doing shows, and you do the full length shows there. Like, why were you drawn to full length shows, especially when so many people are doing like, whether they're just doing like headline sets or books, etc., stuff like that? Why was it like full length shows is where you saw a lot of your work going?
Because I'm incredibly self-involved. Because it's all about me, and I think I really need the full hour, don't you? No, not totally that, but Why did I? I don't think I intended on doing that. I think what I noticed was happening when I was doing headline sets of, say, 20 minutes, half an hour. I was interested in how, the paratexts between each poem. I'm always interested in how people introduce their next poem. And I really loved the poets that had a bit of a story linking each bit. So it took you on a bit of a journey. They weren't just like, here's this poem called this, here's this poem called that. The way there was like sort of the links between.
Each poem wasn't like siloed off on its own.
Yeah.
They would put this popular, here's a narrative to the set. Even if it's a loose narrative, there is something here.
Yeah, definitely. I think some poets are doing that really well. Basie Gracie does this really well. Like, she's sort of in character from the minute she's on stage. And there's like a whole thing even between each poem that like propels you into the next bit. There's that meme that talks about someone trying to describe what a poetry show is, and it's like you don't even know what bit's poem and what's not poem. I love that. So I was trying to do that more and more with the 20-minute sets, and then I was like, what if I could build a whole thing with a beginning and a middle and an end and some jeopardy and some drama and some darkness and some, I want to make people feel everything. What happens if I like really go there and commit to it? So yeah, it was a bit of an accident really, but I really love it. And actually, I mean, it's actually a luxury because to spend an hour with an audience, like you really settle in, like that it's really, like I really think with these short sets, you don't have very long. You've really got to captivate people very quickly.
Yes.
It's a whole journey. An hour with people feels like such a luxury and so generous of them to give you their time. And you sort of like, you go somewhere with them.
Well, yeah, like comparing art forms and whatnot, it's the whole thing of like, there's a thing with so many movies, especially in the cinema, where like you've already bought the ticket to say I'm going to be here for the next however long. So in so many in a lot of films, there's definitely a case of I can lead you into, so I don't have to rush straight from the start, etc. Compared to like whether it's TV shows or like social media stuff, where it's I have to grab your attention straight away kind of thing.
Yeah,
you've got time to go like you're going to be here for an hour. You've already agreed to that. I mean, you could leave. I'd like you not to, but like
lock the doors.
But like there's the kind of agreed thing of like you're going to be here for an hour, so I don't have to come out of the gate full energy. I can like build it. That's what's always nice. But like with the shows, then like everyone has their own different ways of approaching sets, let alone full on shows. For you, what comes first? Is it the idea? Is it just happen to be writing different things already and going, oh, there's a show in this. Like, do you have a method of doing it now? Especially now that you've done more than one of them.
I wouldn't say there's a method.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like stabbing around in the dark. I think I noticed that a lot of my newer poems were about water and proximity to fear. Like I've always lived near the water, but I'm really scared of the sea. And I was this theme was emerging throughout my writing and sort of related to this idea of visibility and solitude, like sort of seeking connection through visibility on the stage, but also sort of wanting to like hide and retreat into solitude. So there were these themes emerging, and I thought, oh, okay, so what's the connection with that poem and that poem? And then I think it must be much easier making a poetry show than writing an hour's play, because you've got these building blocks already. You've got these separate poems, and it's sort of about going, okay, well, how do I tell the story in the most impactful way with these building blocks? Yeah.
No, it's like, I think that also kind of already covers what my next question would be, was the question of like how much of it is I've got these poems, I'm going to put them into the show, etc., or writing a poem specifically for the show.
Yeah, I don't really write poems specifically for the show, but sometimes you do realise you've shoehorned in a poem that does not belong in the show. So there is a bit of that going on, having to kind of kill your darlings a bit and edit out things that aren't serving a purpose. But also once the building blocks are in place, I really enjoy that bit of like sort of writing what I guess I would call the script around it, the sort of the linking bits. So often a poem, as you know, is like this like vignette, this concentrated thing of emotion with no context or no build up. And so I really enjoy actually writing, particularly because I'm writing autobiographically about my lived experience. It's like, okay, how much do I reveal about what got me there? and what came after. I find that really fun.
Nice. Like for you, when you're putting the poems in the show, like I know when I've been doing the book stuff, especially compared to when I perform stuff, there was almost a difference of here is the book version of the poem and here's the stage version of the poem. So with the show, like how much does that come to it of like, I perform this poem this way, but now I'm putting it in the full narrative, we're changing some of it or how it's performed or whatever. Like, does that come into it at all? How is that for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's the great question, isn't it? Like, how do we make our poems live on the page the way we would want to perform them? That's endlessly fascinating and challenging. And this is the joy of getting to perform your work. You get to like really emphasize things in the right place at the right time. So yeah, I sorry, is that answering your question? Maybe not. Repeat what you said again.
Well, it's like when you're putting your poems, when you got your poems, because as we've discussed, it's only poems you already created. When they're in the show, do they change at all when they're in the show? And with that, like, how is it, especially when you still do, I'm assuming, still doing the odd features here and there, etc. How is it going from here is the poem which has to serve a feature versus here is the poem that has to serve in a 1 hour show and there's differently energy and storytelling and whatnot? How is that balance for you?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, so yeah, I have had to edit them a bit because also an hour is a long time to be talking. And I think that I do find myself thinking about the audience's experience more with an hour show. Like, what am I asking them to hold for a whole hour in terms of like digesting language and imagery and metaphor and trauma? Essentially, it's like it's asking a lot of them. So I do have to, I definitely edit things in a different way for brevity, for impact. And also you start realizing, I don't know if you had this when you published your books, but do you ever notice that there's certain words and phrases and ideas that you're obviously just really attached to that come up again and again, and you're like, God damn it, really?
Oh yeah, I mean, even just with the way I talk, I start to notice more and more some of the repeated phrases or turns of phrase I go to, things I've just learned. It's like, one of the ones that, not a phrase, but I've realised in greeting a lot of people, I have a habit of doing the whole hang 10 thing, etc. And I don't remember when that started, but it just became a thing that like, oh, I always do that. Okay, good to be aware of it. And I think with the writing, there's definitely a couple of like turns or phrases or go-to lines, and it's like, I've written this line before. This is something that's not new. Yeah.
I noticed it recently. A friend was proofreading the new manuscript and they were like, you really love these particular words. Certain images around, like, I don't know, I can't remember what they were now. There was one about cocooning and something else. And they were like, yeah, it's just popping up a few times. You might want to, No,
it definitely, like, and that is always that balance between how much of it is just, here is my voice in the poem that's going to sound consistent throughout the whole show because that's just my voice, and how much of it is this is actually repetitive now and I need to stop it is always aligned.
Such a good point. And I suppose like when you're doing a set, when you're performing live, those very personal attributes and mannerisms are quite charming and engaging. That's just who you are. You're revealing something of yourself. But then the minute it's sort of in an hour long show or in a piece of text, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe we need to like think about this.
Yes, well, like we're looking at the show stuff as well. What I definitely want to talk to you a lot about was you obviously with Goddess had the whole doing aerialism in the show. So like, one, are we bringing another giant set to your future shows? Is that a thing we're still going to continue with? But also just in general, like, how is it matching? Because obviously you've done feature sets doing it, but for the full show, properly planning it around the whole, and here are the movements that we're going to pretty much stick to for the next year and a half or whatever. How is that planning process for you?
Yeah, so there's no aerial in this new show.
No big sets to travel around with this time?
Well, there's a few interesting props.
There you go.
That,
that's the Naomi we know.
Yeah, Berkovich is making me some interesting underwater props because I wanted it to feel, I want the set to feel in this show like you're under the water, you know, and it's sort of this analogy for being, for like depression and heaviness, but also like the mystery and uncertainty of the ocean, you know, like we actually know so much more about space than the deep, deep ocean. I find that so terrifying. Like the sea is terrifying. There's like so many mouths in there. And I've
never heard it described as so many mouths in there.
Aren't there though? Even the little ones, they've still got a mouth. Those little tiddlers. Yeah, I don't know. So I wanted it to feel, I want the set to feel like you're under the water, but sort of also floating in space. So we'll see how that goes. But we've got, Berkovich is helping me make that vision come to life. But yeah, so no Ariel in this show. I guess I wanted to see there's still like movement elements and theatricality and an original music score. So I'm always interested in like the musicality of storytelling and putting those things together. But yeah, I felt like I wanted to lean into the words more predominantly this time.
Nice. And like we're looking at the words, and obviously like would you say there's a difference between an audience that's coming for just a poetry night versus an audience that's coming for a full length show, and like is there definitely a consideration over poetry audiences, to call it what it is a lot of the time, are largely poetry based and poets, when the show is not? So like how much consideration and thought is in there in like different audiences and playing around with that?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's like you just got to shoehorn in the poetry where people aren't noticing. It does feel like at these solo show gigs there's more non-poets in the audience, and it's interesting, isn't it? Like, you know, the eternal battle of trying to make poetry and spoken word feel accessible and fun because people think they don't like it. I really found this in Edinburgh when I was flyering for Gobbess, trying to say to people, it's a poetry show. And people are like, no, I don't want your poems. So it's like, okay, how can I get really inventive about how I talk about this show and all the other things that it is? Because again, it's like we said before, it's like, yeah, it's poems, but it's other things as well. I think writing poetry is the thing that I most enjoy, that makes me feel really alive. And I would say that's the main discipline. But, you know, there's all these other elements as well about like memoir and autobiographical writing and comedy and circus. And, you know, like there's lots of ways you could talk about it. It's finding the way that gets people to feel like it might be for them. It's often just getting people in the room, isn't it? Because it's quite hard to describe what a thing is when you don't even know either. It's one of those tactics where I don't ever actually promote my nights this way, but that thing of like, if you just come in the room and see what it's like, you will actually appreciate it. And like what's been really fun is like one of the nights I'm running is a night called One Night Slam, and with the big belt.
Yeah, with the big belt. And what's been fun is the staff at the venue. To be fair, like the venue does a lot of music-based stuff, so they like live performances, and some of them I believe are writers themselves. And it's been fun when some of the staff who have a night off or it's a quiet night will come downstairs to listen to it, and it's like, oh, this is actually good kind of thing. I actually kind of I see the appeal of this kind of thing, and it's like, yes, cool. Like once you're in there, you can enjoy it. But like, especially with some of the show stuff, and like I think each to their own how they do it, but like especially when I think there's a lot of thing with the show stuff where when it's just poetry and features, the focus is obviously just more on the words, etc. But with the show, it's also, as talked about set, also it's the costumes as well. It's just like how big a factor is that? Because obviously you have essentially the goddess outfit. You've also now going to have the monster outfit. It's like how much of the outfit and costume is that, and how do you approach doing that, given that it's such a different thing to what people are used to?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you were saying, it really is interesting, isn't it? Like when someone always leaves a poetry event saying, oh, I didn't think I liked poetry.
Yes.
And you're like, yes, you know, that happens every single time. People have this, anyway, costumes and stuff, I suppose. So I think there are some poets doing it really well. My friend Dan Searle, he has a whole sort of device that he does with this, I think it's even a really old Safeway bag that he pulls his poems out of. And
Safeway's that's a pull.
Yeah, isn't it? And ancient. So he's pulling them out the bag and then tossing the poems away. And I remember thinking, oh, that's so clever. Like such an interesting way of, presenting your poetry performance, and also making then the reading of them from the page interesting. So yeah, I mean, it is a luxury, isn't it, to get to fluff around with like costumes and things. And I guess that's where some of the clowning is coming in. I'm finding that really fun, the visual elements. Like I say, I'm sort of not an actor, so I'm sort of making it up as I go along, really.
No, so like, especially in not being an actor, how has it been jumping into that scene? Like, I feel there's a lot of poets I know who almost stay away from the full-length shows because of the lack of acting or whatever. So how is it not being an actor but still doing that kind of stuff?
I think the way I'm getting away with it, I'd like to think, is because I'm still very much playing myself, because all the poems are from my lived experience, and I'm normally speaking directly to the audience still as myself. That's what makes it a bit easier. But yeah, I mean, I've just had to learn on the job. I mean, I've really benefited from friends giving me feedback and stuff. I mean, when I first started touring Goddess, I was going off stage for all these costume changes, and an actor friend was like, you need to just get changed on stage with us. And I was like, oh yeah, of course that makes sense. Like, it's intimate, it's part of the story, it's part of you being in my bedroom with me, experiencing these different moods, is, me going behind the screen and saying the poem from above the screen or whatever. So it's utter trial and error.
Yeah. Well, on the trial and error thing as well, like, how much do the shows change as you're doing them? Because, like, obviously, I think so many people as well assume it's a script, and that script is kind of your show bible for the next year and a half, etc., or whatever. But, like, obviously with that, you do it a few times and kind of go, this part is not working and not landing. It's just like, how much?
So much. I didn't realize that when I first started touring Goddess. I just thought, well, this is it now. This is what it looks like. And I think it changed pretty much every show. I was always under the bonnet tweaking something and making it better. And I mean, maybe it never ends. Maybe editing never ends.
That's fair. And like, well, like also with the editing, you mentioned obviously like working with other people. We've obviously mentioned Berkovich already, but like in general, like how is it like I mean, this is networking, but like, how is it making those connections and finding those people, and like, how important are they for making these shows exist?
I mean, so important. I think I'm just so lucky that so many friends have been generous with their feedback and their support, really. And if you told me years ago that like friends would be giving feedback on the stuff, I would have thought, oh God, I don't know how I would feel about that, because that didn't really happen for me so much with cabaret and circus. It was what it was, and you were, I guess, always trying to get better at your skill, but it's quite a solo pursuit. It's quite a solitary pursuit again. Whereas with this feels so collaborative, I guess even emotionally collaborative in the room. And I guess it feels like it's always open. But I also I'm surprised at how open I am and not like about people giving their feedback. I really want to hear it, and I want the shows to constantly evolve and speak to different things. So
nice. And like, as well as them also kind of constantly evolving, like when you are going to watch other people's shows, other people's performance, etc., like how much are you now kind of going like, I can take that from your show, I can do that from that, etc. Like how much of it is also now just like, I'm always working, crafting even from the audience perspective?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I learned so much from stand-up comedy, although, I'm not a comedian. There's so many interesting devices and little tricks and things you don't always think about maybe as a poet, because for me at least, I'm thinking about like the rhythm and the syntax and sort of like landing things in a very specific way, and then watching stand up and how they're telling a story and how they might pause, and even just a little look or a little interaction with the audience that totally changes the whole thing. So I think I've learned a lot from, I'm constantly mining new things,
Well, like with the things you already do, then like obviously you've got the aerialism, etc. How tempted are you, again, obviously you didn't put it in Monster seemingly, but like how tempted are you, like, but I can do this, can I fit this into every show kind of thing?
Yeah, a little bit, but also it's nice to move away from the aerial as well, and for me to sort of focus on the words. Also, lugging that kit around.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just this new show, I think, is going to be a dream because so often it's like you're driving. Anyway, yeah, I can't moan about it, but like it's a lot of kit to be lugging around.
Yeah.
So there was a point in touring Goddess where I was like, I'm going to make this new show that has
Just me
minimal.
standing on stage, no moving at all.
No props, no costumes,
Yeah.
no warm up needed, no height restrictions, just as easy as possible.
Completely fair. Well, like, but I guess on those lines as well, then, like, are there any, like, things from the cabaret world, essentially, but like I kind of want to try and see how to fit that into a show or add that to a show, but haven't been able to figure out just yet?
Well, sort of circling back to the thing you mentioned at the start about like fingers in different pies, I have also created a new very weird cabaret act that involves poetry that I'm really looking forward to getting back on the road this year. I won't say too much more because it's not out in the world yet, and I sort of need to incubate it a bit further, but it'll be weird. So yeah,
we love weird. Though unfortunately to make it almost too practical and logistical with this, like I think there's so much fun in the creator of this stuff and all that kind of side, but on the logistics side, how is it actually getting a show to places and venues, etc.? What is that process like, especially because for the most part you're doing it kind of solo? Yeah. Obviously getting people to help when you can, but like how is that as a thing? How difficult is that?
Difficult. Yeah, I mean, easier this time around. I think because of touring Goddess for the last couple of years, I'd built relationships with certain venues. I also had, I had to learn about making a tour pack. I never knew about that before. I just thought you got booked to do the thing. But obviously, if you're asking to bring a whole hour's show to a theatre, especially in a place you've never been, a part of the country you've never been before, they want to see what it's going to look like and even just all the practicalities. And actually, rural touring has really helped me. I'm part of a few rural touring schemes, and they gave me a lot of feedback on how to approach venues. So often I found myself wanting to talk about the emotion and the idea. Well, this is about my story of da-da-da. And often venues were like, yeah, great, cool. Can it fit in this space? How long is it going to take? Who's it suitable for? Like they wanted the nuts and bolts of the show. And I was like, selling them this dream. This ephemeral kind of story.
But it's about the art.
It's about the art.
Does art literally fit in the theatre?
Yeah. So yeah, I think I learned on the job with Goddess, and I built these relationships. So it was a bit easier this time round, especially because I haven't performed Monster at all yet. So the first show is at the end of the month. And so I've got no images. I've got nothing to show anyone yet, apart from this idea and this dream. But because I had the tour pack from Goddess and was able to kind of talk about nuts and bolts and what I've learned from there, that made it a bit easier this time around because I also knew what they might be looking for from me.
Nice. And like obviously with doing all these tours and going to all these different venues, etc., like we're still obviously primarily billing it as a poetry show, but obviously with that you're in theatre spaces, etc. So like do you have to feel like I am coming this from, is it almost like having to turn off poet brain and turn on like theatre brain at times kind of thing?
Yes. Yeah. You realise that you're the only one that really cares about the words. Like I really care about getting the words right. They've been chosen in a specific order, in a specific way. Like I'm so geeky about the language. And then suddenly when you're on the road and in these spaces, it's like, oh, there's a million other things that suddenly are, a real focus, like lighting and the audio, like the sound, how the stage looks, how you move around the stage. I mean, I was used to just like floating around at the front of the stage in the middle because that's how you perform poetry. So sort of had to learn what it might be like to use all of the stage and to go to different places for different moods. So yeah, it's definitely a consideration that I'm still learning. Because
obviously it is that thing of like, and you've got so many people that have the 1 hour stand-up show or the 1 hour theatre play, etc., in bringing the spoken word play in here, like for a lot of the audience for the most part is I'm seeing an hour of someone do something creative on stage, and the theme of this is what's bringing me into it rather than specifically the art form half the time.
Yeah.
So for you as well, they're like, how much again, obviously, you mentioned before, you call yourself not an actor, etc., but nevertheless, it is still acting on stage. Like, not to we have to do a full-on labels conversation, but how is it in like labeling yourself as an artist? Is it just basically I am a creative, full stop, or are we going like maybe I am? And I mean, I have been acting on stage for a few years, so by default, I am an actor, or what? Like, how is that for you? And like figuring out where you fall, if you will.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because like no one gives you permission or tells you when it's okay to call yourself a thing. You sort of just got to boldly be the thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is an ongoing thing, isn't it? Around like how do we define ourselves in programs and in applications? Theatre maker, performance artist, professional weirdo, creative. Yeah, I sort of go with those words roughly. I've just found the best way is for me to really re-inhabit the emotion with which I wrote the poems the first time. Method acting, that's what they call it, right? So if I'm back in the place, I mean, and that's true when you do like a headline set or something as well, I guess. But yeah, like just being back in that real place of that emotion. I think it's just about trying to say something true. Yeah. And I guess that's when it feels like it works the best. And, you know, when you get the best feedback and when I also have the best time is when I'm, sounds wanky, but like being authentic. But I'm being in the place where the poem came from. Whether we call it a poem or we call it a script or a story or a play, whatever, it's like just being back in that emotion and then sharing that emotion in its most raw way with people.
No, so like,
God, that sounds wanky.
No, you can wanky's fine. No, but like as I kind of bring in this section to the end, then like one of the last things I want to kind of like talk to you about with that is like obviously in doing these shows now, so much is clearly personal to you and how you're doing stuff. But like, has there ever been a contemplation of having like another poet, actor, or etc. on stage with you, or giving your writing to someone else, or was it still just like this is still my story, though, so I'm telling my story?
Yeah, I mean, I've loved when I've had an opening act. That's been so great, and seeing how the different poems inform each other in each of our sets has been really fun. And if like budget and everything allowed, then I'd love to explore that more. Yeah, I had often thought what it would be like to actually pay an actor to do Goddess, like pay a really good aerialist to do Goddess. But then, yeah, I don't know. I guess then maybe it'll always be like acting, right? Like maybe the power is that it is coming from the truth. I don't know. But yeah, it would be fun to write stuff that involved multiple poets. That would be really fun. Yeah,
that's nice. And I guess to wrap this section up, then like from doing the shows, like, is there any advice that you've been given that you've loved, or like any advice you'd give to other people that like, no, this is the thing that I really need to make sure other people know or want to tell other people?
I mean, I guess there's the thing we always say in poetry workshops about show, don't tell. So, you know, that still rings true with performing a solo show. You really want people to feel things, you know, like I said to a friend the other day, like, we're architects of emotion. That is wanky. But there's something of that going on, right? Like you want to really take people with you rather than just telling them a story about your life in a way that's like telling them how to feel. But yeah, also just leaning into the stuff that's really true. I think that's what always lands with the most impact. So leaning into what's true to you, you know, and being really specific, I've found, is paradoxically what people can relate to the most. So rather than talking about fear as a broad abstract thing, going really into what that fear is of and how it manifests. And, you know, the more specific we get, the more alive something becomes and more relatable.
I've said it on this podcast and to people so many times, but like the thing I always like about writing and poetry in particular is when the writing is so unique to the person telling that story. Like I will always like those poems more. That doesn't mean it's going to be automatically be a good poem, but that thing of like I want something that only this person could write, whether it is the specific experiences they've lived, or ironically going back to what we were saying earlier, the very specific word choices and way they speak was like, cool, it might be a generic theme, but this is so your voice saying it. There's so many poems that, to me personally, I don't vibe with, because they feel like you could give it to the next poet up and it would be the exact same poem and nothing changes.
Interesting.
And I don't vibe with that. And like other people do, and because some of it is, again, this is very much the personal opinion of stuff. Or for some people, part of it is the topic is the good thing, etc. But for me, I wouldn't. Why have you told me this? Is that something I definitely vibe with?
Yeah, so true. I mean, it makes me think of Mary Oliver, you know, like walking in nature and writing about what she saw, which one could argue has been done a lot in poetry, but it feels so specific to her. It feels like you can really recognize her poems if you didn't know they were, you know, if you didn't say it was written by her. Like really zooming in on like the micro of the grasshopper's legs and the pink sled of the body of the snail, and then her reflections on humanity. And again, she's sort of another person that writes a lot about solitude and belonging, and there's like a deep sort of philosophy or even sadness sometimes in her writing, and I feel it's so specifically her.
No, I feel like my favorite creators are very much ones where like, cool, this is only you can do this kind of thing. I definitely vibe with that a lot.
Yeah.
But now we are going to finish off this Let's Talk About section and go into my probably more chaotic section, which is slow fire questions.
Okay, bring it.
So this last section is my slow fire question section, where, so back in the day, I don't like I said that. It used to be for the YouTube channel do a lot of things called quick fire questions. I'd get poets down and give them like 3 minutes on the clock, get through as many as my questions as we could do, and the fun of how do you respond to questions quickly, etc. But with doing the podcast stuff, I like the idea of slow fire questions, giving them a bit more time to answer them and having a bit more conversation-led things.
Okay.
We're only going to do 5 of these, but we're going to pick them at random. I basically have a list of 100 questions. So can you please give me a random number in between 1 and 100?
87.
Cool. Then the first question I have for you then is, what poet have you seen perform the most?
The most? I've seen Joelle Taylor quite a lot.
Nice.
I mean, just incredible. So vastly creative. I love her books. I mean, she's really doing some interesting things with what poetry can do or be, or how it can be stretched into something else. Love her writing. I mean, the whole idea of like, you know, taking cantos, and then her novel, which was sort of about time travel, and then this newer book, which is sort of a film script. Brilliant. Who else have I seen? Why is it suddenly so hard to think of someone? I mean, obviously my Brighton gang.
Yeah.
Basie Gracie, I've seen perform a lot. I really love her. I love her work. And who else? I mean, I feel like I've seen you perform a fair bit. You're up there.
Yeah, it's one of the ones I always think of like, I am so on the open mic scene, especially because I'm hosting and filming stuff, that like a lot of the poets I've seen the most are my open micers, etc.
Yeah.
And it's always a thing of like, in terms of like features and whatnot, not to differentiate them too much, not there's too much of a hierarchy in that sense, but like when I look into the more established poets I'm seeing the most, it's like, I'm not seeing as much of you as I probably should be seeing. And some of that is because, again, people tour, they move, they go on to different art practice. Like we had Inoa do Process recently, and it's like, it was lovely to have him back there. I ain't seen Inoa perform poetry in fucking ages because he's doing other art form things. Like I grew up and did a lot of work with Joelle when I was younger.
Really?
I cannot tell you the last time I saw Joelle Taylor perform, just because now she's doing the bigger shows, etc. And I just got a different life now, so I can't go to all of them. So
yeah. Oh, Aflo as well.
Oh,
Aflo the poet.
yes.
I've seen a lot, and I just always love their performances so much. Just so much energy, so much emotion. I mean, really can galvanize a room.
Yes, they've been on my, I can't remember last time I saw them perform, but I saw them at the Brighton Hamilton final because they were there with Gray Taylor, I want to say.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like I've been seeing a lot more of like, because yeah, we've been talking off camera, I've seen a lot more of the Brighton scene recently, and like, bless him, Gray has been coming down a little bit more now for One Night Slam. I think because he really wants to win the belt. You know what? Fair play.
Fair play.
Like, you can tell some of the people there that like, oh, you're in it for the community thing of it, and like he is, but also you want to win. There's definitely like I love it dearly. It was like you got that little bit of a competitive side, and bless you for that. But you know, I've seen like Aflo a few times, and I need to see more of their poetry soon as well.
Yeah.
Can you give me another number between 1 and 100?
65.
Cool. Then we are going for on a first date, who pays?
Oh, split it.
Nay.
Split it.
No,
I mean, do you know what? I just haven't been on that many dates. I'm not on any of the apps. And I just don't think, I don't know, I don't really go on dates.
No, that's fair. And I think the only time I've had someone not answer that, and I'm not going to dox them on here, but they said they'll pay on the first date, and their reason behind it was because I'm in a really well-paid job, so I've got a lot of money, so I feel I can do it. Like they work in like a tech industry thing, so they are very much in the like poet because we're doing tech stuff. Where it's like, yeah, money's not actually an issue right now, so I don't feel bad doing it, especially when some people are. Again, look at the poetry world. Like a lot of people aren't making money, so like I'm fine. I'll pay.
How lovely!
It's like, you know, I'll allow that one. That one is fine. Like normally split,
sweet.
but and like I'm assuming with that as well. Like if they want to split a bill, they're not going to say no. But I understand. Like that's the only time. Like okay, I can understand that. I'll give you that one as an exception kind of thing.
That's generous. That's kind. Yeah.
No, another number, please.
58.
58. Who is your biggest celebrity crush?
Angelina Jolie.
Ooh.
Or Natalie Portman. I mean, so many powerful women from like well, you know, they're still alive now, but I mean, like, I'm thinking of like in the 90s, there were just so many powerful, interesting, alternative women in the spotlight. I mean, maybe there are now. I think maybe because I'm older, I don't have my finger on the pulse as much.
Well, yeah, like I would say there were a lot more acting ones. Yeah. 90s, noughties, etc. I think nowadays you've got more on the like musician side of like like
Charlie XCX,
even like Chapel Roans, etc. Who are a bit more cool with being strong and changing the game in that sense here. But I don't think it's as much on the acting side. I mean, there'll always be some, but it feels like there's a lot more of the musicians that are claiming it now. Not that there weren't a while ago, but it feels like that's where the shift has been. Yeah,
I mean, like Alanis Morissette.
Yes.
Maybe I'm just nostalgic for a time.
Well, because like, I guess also with that, then like how much. I feel like I already know the answer, but how are you with celebrity culture in general and like keeping up with it?
I don't know anything. Yeah, I'm really behind. I mean, whatever the algorithm on Instagram sort of spouts at me, I might accidentally imbibe via osmosis, but I don't know anything. I live under a rock.
That is fair. Cool, give me another number, please.
16.
16, then we are going for, what is your favourite book?
Wow, that's hard.
I love the momentary, like, I don't know, my brain has stopped for a moment as I'm trying to think this through.
I read, I mean, there's like different books for different times. How can you ask me?
It would change on the day, etc.
Don't make me choose between my children.
Favourite child. Pick your favourite child.
My babies. Okay, I'm just going to like think about what comes to my head.
I again, it's not serious. You can pick a couple. It's fine.
Okay. So I read a book last year. Oh no, I can't even remember the name now. Something in the Woods Loves You, I think it's called. And it was a beautiful autobiographical story about his journey with depression and walking in nature and lessons from nature, like what we can learn from the blue heron and what we can learn from the dormouse and what we can learn from this specific plant. And it was so beautiful and detailed and rich. And he's a poet as well, and I think this was his first novel. And then a couple of years before, I read something by it was called The Maker of Swans.
Nice.
And it was a really unusual novel, kind of magical realism. I mean, I love Angela Carter, magical realism. I love Olivia Gatwood's poetry books. I mean, these are just what are coming to me now, but there's so many.
Well, I guess for you then, like, obviously with doing all these creative things on the show and how intense that can be, how much time do you find for reading? And especially because I know that you drive a lot. So, like, I know for me, like, I don't read much, but if I do read, it's often on the I'm getting a train to somewhere, so I've got time to read then.
God damn, isn't it annoying that you can't read and drive? They're really missing it. I suppose you could audiobook it, but I like the process of reading.
Obviously. But it's like, how much are you getting in time to finding time to read?
Well, this winter, I was sort of house sitting in Cornwall for 3 months, and I really dedicated the time to just reading and writing, which is such a luxury. I mean, it was amazing. And yeah, I do read quite a lot. I try and always have a book on me, so that anytime I'm waiting around or doing something, I can, I'm trying, like everyone, to train myself to do more of that and less staring at my phone. And like anything, it's like a muscle. Like, the more I do it, the more I'm then captivated by the book and I want to read the book more. But it's like whenever you've finished one, you then got to like get into the next and not get sucked into that dark vortex of social media.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm famously not the book person, but that vibe of when I do start reading it, but once I'm into it, it's like, okay, I'm into it, so any of my downtime will be trying to catch up with this. And I think that's definitely, whether it's book or TV show or whatever, it's like, okay, now that I'm into it, this is now my personality, and I must finish this before I move on to the next thing. I feel
the hyper focus.
Yes. Yes. Let's do one last number for me, please.
3.
Cool. Then we are going for favourite spoken word night.
Oh, come on. No. We are picking another number. 4.
Do you like button poetry?
Yes.
What was the long pause there for?
Because I was like, that's such an unusual question.
No, I mean, part of that is obviously because button poetry was the big social media. Or not even social media, because I don't count YouTube as social media, but like button poetry was the big exposure for so many people for poetry.
Yeah.
And I think with that, there was like, there was there's always been the stigma and vibe of being in the UK scene and hearing the kind of Americanized, more poetry slam-esque voice, etc., that I think button poetry unintentionally made popular.
Right, okay, yeah. I mean, I think button poetry is how I discovered Olivia Gatwood and probably Andrea Gibson.
Yes.
Maybe as well. So, yeah, I mean, I loved it. Maybe it was also reflective of a moment in time in spoken word poetry, and things kind of catch fire, don't they, in terms of popularity. Certain styles or turns of phrase become the zeitgeist.
Like you've got a lot of the Neil Hilborn stuff there that obviously went relatively viral. I feel like Reedy Francisco's got a few button poetry ones. There's always a couple, like your Phil K, Sarah K. Those are the ones that are breaking into the mainstream, and like we didn't have a UK alternative properly, I don't think.
No.
Well, like on this one, how are you? Obviously, I know you're not the most techie person, but how are you engaging with poetry when it goes to an online sphere?
Well, interestingly, I suppose I've had to try and engage with it a bit more because I run these workshops once a month on Zoom, and I'm always trying to find new page poems for us to look at, but also performance videos for us to look at in the workshop. So that sort of challenged me a bit to get more into that. And yeah, I mean, that's why I love running those workshops, is because they're challenging me to apply myself and look at different things as well. And it's always really fun you can't help but want to pick stuff that you think people in the workshop will like. And they nearly always do, have very constructive things there's always something you can learn, right? But it's really fun finding one and being like, yes, this is going to really captivate them. Nice.
And I'm also for you, like obviously with the shows now as well, like show photos is one thing, to like show video stuff, like how much of it, obviously budget allowing, how much do you would there be a space for this show can also exist in video form somewhere? Would that something you'd want at all, or was that?
I'm ready for my Netflix deal. Yeah, any time they want to call, then that's fine. Yeah, I was very fortunate that with Gobbess, a couple of friends at different points with the fancy equipment came and filmed it for me. It was always interesting because obviously you really want the videos so that you can promote the next gigs.
Yes.
And again, a bit like Killing Your Darlings thing, I don't know how to edit, like, but realizing that social media wants like these 10-second, it seems like sacrilege to cut up a poem into 10-second sound bites. Like, what the
I do obviously the stuff for One Night Slam, and that's been going well on Instagram. Not that should be the only metric, but it's a nice thing for helping promotion stuff. And I'm unfortunately at that stage now where, because I know Instagram Reels, they will highly prioritize anything that's 3 minutes and under. When someone's poem is like 3 minutes and 2 seconds, it's like, fuck you. I can't really do that. That's not going to work well, then, despite how good a poem it is. And like,
that's annoying.
Definitely, like, can I trim the applause any tighter? Did you do a gap that I'll just artificially cut out after the fact? I don't want to change what happened, but also I'm in basically having to use social media to promote the event.
Yeah, of course.
This doesn't work now. I've got to change it a little bit.
I mean, I guess going by the slam rule book, then keeping things to a tight 3 minutes is always good, something to bear in mind. But yeah, it's wild, isn't it? Like, trying to think about how to translate your poems to exist on the online realm is just like a whole...
Yeah. And I'm assuming, again, that also is promoting the show in general, having to accept, and it's always having to accept a lot of people on social media now, so now to play a little bit of the social media game to promote it. I'm assuming that's been an annoyance, but fine.
Yes, it's a whole thing, isn't it? Because you just want to make the work, and then when you've made the work, you just want to rehearse the work and make it as good as it can be, and think about what that experience is going to be like. I do find it really hard. I mean, boohoo, tiny violin, but like thinking about how to flog tickets, I don't know, my brain doesn't work like that. I think maybe it's easier once you've done the show a couple of times, because then there's word of mouth. You've also got some pictures and videos to actually show people what it's like. You've hopefully got some reviews, so that makes it a bit easier. But yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to hold it all lightly, because, you know, I've also, on the tour with Goddess, there were some places where ticket sales weren't great, and like there was somewhere in Cornwall where we hadn't sold many tickets, so we made it free, and it was a packed audience, and then just asked for donations at the end, and that was like such a fun gig. So, you know, we have to be careful that we don't take ticket sales as like a metric for our value or our validation. It can be down to so many things. And also our experience, like with that show, I had a great time. I had great conversations with people afterwards. And a lot of them just did not know what they were seeing. It was a part of the country I'd never been to before. They had no idea who I was. A lot of them weren't necessarily into poetry at all. And it's kind of fun when actually then they take a punt on something like, I'm going to see this weird
Wednesday night out.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, I really, that really spoke to me. So that's a great feeling. I really love that. So, I think it's important not to get too hung up on book sales, ticket sales. I mean, of course, it's nice to eat. And
it's nice to eat. Occasionally, depending on venues, having to be caught. I wanted to see the art, but also this does cost money sometimes, etc. It's a balance, but nevertheless, thank you for being on this podcast today.
Thank you for having me. And just in that, in the light of that, to plug the new show.
What I was going to do, you have a camera here. Is there anything you want to plug? Tell people where to find you, all of that stuff.
All my tour dates are on my Instagram, which is I am Naomi Wood, and the new book will be coming out soon. The collection of poetry. I've got a couple of Brighton gigs at the Old Market, and also as part of Brighton Fringe. So yeah, hopefully see people on the road.
Perfect. You're on Process already. You know what Process is, people. So I have a habit of, like, at this stage in the podcast, I obviously sell the guest, but also if you're listening to the Process podcast, I'd like to think you know what Process is and are liking it and following it. So I'm not going to plug anything, but nevertheless,
plug it. Go on, plug it.
There's nothing to plug. It's the tangents. It's the annoying thing when you're in an Odeon and you're trying to tell you come to Odeon. It's like, I'm literally at Odeon.
We know what you are. Yeah.
So that's more the thing. Nevertheless, do all the liking, following, sharing, all that stuff. And as I like to end everything, we love you all. Now fuck off. Goodbye, everyone.